Hi, my name is Sankeetha Selvarajah. I'm a corporate attorney based out of Massachusetts and New York. I operate a corporate law firm that is also in Massachusetts and New York. And I also run a small legal tech company and a consulting firm as well.
Well, Miss Overachiever, geez Louise. Oh my God. One, I'm so excited because I asked you week one of this podcast last year, hey, Sankeetha, can you be on the podcast? Sure. And then you sign up and you blow me off. Then you signed up again and then you blew me off because I do have it. I have the email trail. And then I'm like, I go, whatever. She's not going to do it. Even though she's my friend, she won't do it at all. But then all of a sudden I'm like, you know what? I go, I haven't heard from her. I go, because we've been always just like enjoying our bliss of being in pandemic land, pandemic vacation. And then I'm like, you know what? I'm going to see what she's going to do. And she said, yes. And you show, I mean, and literally, because I was like, I wonder if she'll show up. She didn't send me she didn't send me her photos or anything like that. I wonder if she'll show up.
That's coming. Wow. Like that bus that just ran over me is really great right now. Okay. I love it. I'm going to name the bus. I'm going to name the bus the Jodi bus. Okay. But anyhow, just in
I'm never going to say to people like, I go, oh, I don't want to make you feel bad. No, I do. I want to make you feel bad.
She does. I co-sign the statement. No.
Hello, my love. Hello.
Hi. Thank you. So great to see you. Okay.
I miss you. I do. You are one of the people I really miss you. And mind you, I didn't even know where you were. I mean, it's on me. I could have called and find out too, but I didn't know. I mean, during the pandemic, did you spend the majority of time in Boston or New York?
So
I saw pictures of your niece, which I love the pictures of the niece.
She's a cutie. She's like a mini person already at 2 years old. So we interrupt her life. So it's very, I was like, this sounds so familiar. This is very familiar. I know this. Someone I know. No, I moved to New York in the middle of the pandemic because I wanted to be close to family. Massachusetts, I have no family members at all. And I've been living there for 14 years. And I thought it was the time to go. And we already had an office in New York anyway. So because we're virtual and we're transaction attorneys, we weren't, we're not tied to litigation dates like that. So, and it was a pandemic. And I thought it was probably the best move I've done during that time. Yeah.
All right. So we're going to get there, but we have to rewind. So the biggest thing about this podcast, so I started the podcast in April of 2020 when I lost all my speaking gigs. Like everything that I was doing, I lost. And I'm like, okay, I'm an A-type. So I'm going to create something that is going to be, that makes more sense to what I do. I work with small businesses. I work with entrepreneurs and innovators, and I work in the media. So this was so natural. But if someone had asked me, Jodi, why don't you do a podcast? I would have said, hell no. No, not at all. But it has been very therapeutic in regards of meeting people I would have never met and just like hearing great stories. So the best way to understand the business is to understand the person. So let's just start from little Sankeetha, always straight through to university and college.
All the way from my past. Do you want to know the whole story? Okay.
Well, you know what? We're not here for 8 minutes, dude. We got some time. We got some time.
I don't want to bore your people. I was born, hence here we are. And I actually lived with my grandparents for the first 3 years of my life. My parents lived elsewhere. They actually lived in Africa and Nigeria. They worked for the government. And I was born in Sri Lanka, which had a civil war, which broke out 3 years after I was born. My parents came back and got me, and I lived in Nigeria until I was about 6.5, 7. Okay. And then they took me out of school for about 6 months and they gallivanted around Europe. Okay. So you'll have an idea of the type of people I'm rolling with here. And it was an interesting thing because they would take me to museums. My parents are naturally like curious world travelers. So I was just part of the baggage. Okay. They're like, oh, there's this little small person we have to feed sometimes. And then we settled in Toronto. So until I was about 17. So I really consider myself Canadian. So yeah, beyond anything else. And then I moved to the States to go to my undergrad, grad, and law school here in the Northeast.
I was always taught when I was younger that no matter what country you go to, you need to understand the religion and you need to visit museums.
Yes. Yeah, so like that actually the first day that we ever went to a new country, we just went straight to the museums, and then we started hanging out with the locals. My parents are very like my dad most likely is kind of one of those really, let's talk to people. What is the culture? How does this work? Okay. So he's like the worst tourist because he's off grid all the time. And then, but he meets amazing people. And I think I hope I have inherited that great quality in him. So I do the same.
So you say the worst and I say the best, because I am that person where I go off and the tour, if I sign up for a tour, they're like, where is she? And I'm like, and when I was younger, my parents always said she's gonna get kidnapped, because I would literally just talk to everyone and anyone. As you know, when I first approached you, when I first contacted you, where I'm like, you're so interesting, I want to know who you are.
Actually, you said something like I was stalking you.
Yeah, I did say that too. I didn't want to start with that, but yes, for everyone, once I know who a person is and I really find them interesting, I will do whatever I can. I don't need to be your friend, but I want to get to know who you are and how you are.
And I'll be honest with you, that's not a bad thing, because I've actually paid that kindness forward when I stalk people now. And I'm like, I like your trajectory. I want to be part of this. How do I get involved? Or how can I support this growth? Or how can I throw some resources at you?
And I believe that some people are seeking that. I mean, they're like, okay, one, I think it's kind of weird. But then you start the conversation, they're like, oh, you're legit. You're normal. You're not gonna you're not gonna kill me. I'm okay with this now. I'm good.
Right. So it's a fine line between navigating the creepiness and the real professional, like, no, I really want to help, but I'm this creepy lady in the back that's like stalking her stuff. Like, yeah, I go to your events and I'm like, let's get this chick in front of like people that would, maximize her growth. And then they're like, hey, sure about this? Especially New Yorkers. They're like, who you is?
Well, like when I'm in New York, I was born in New York. So I was like conceived in Haiti, born in New York, raised in New England, in Massachusetts. And it was funny because I go to New York, I'm like, good morning. And my cousin's like, why? Why do you do that? I'm like, they made eye contact. And if they made eye contact.
So I am not her. I just want you to know I have not picked up this quality. My concierge, my door person told me the other day, he's like, you're like the happiest person in this building. I was like, oh, I'm not from here.
Have I rubbed off on you? I think I rubbed off on you. I think that's good.
But I'm pretty stoic, and like when in Massachusetts, they're very reserved. So in New York, they're like in your face about stuff, or just don't. What are you selling, lady? And I'm just like, I'm not. I'm just happy to be here. And obviously, I meditated, so I'm on this like nice chill, walking out, and then like I think they saw me dancing in the elevator, and I realized, oh God, they have cameras in the.
I love hearing this. This is great. All right. So let's get back to when you were younger. So you have a sister, she's younger. Was she, so you were, what's the age gap? Because was she able to go to all the museums and stuff or is it just you two? Or you and your parents?
It was me for the first 7 blissful years of my life. Okay. 7.5. Like she came along when I was like 8 years old, when we lived in Toronto. So it was like this long gap, which is weird because if you know our dynamic right now, she actually acts like she's older than me. Okay. She thinks that she's the overprotective one. She's the one that makes sure that I come home at night and things like she thinks I have a very like unbelievable lifestyle. I was like, what is the lifestyle? Control issues. But so she's actually, but the interesting thing is she was raised in the West, but she actually does most of her work in Africa right now, sub-Saharan Africa. She focuses back to the UN. And so it's interesting how the child that never grew up there is the one that's focused on it. And we're completely to the West at this point.
Because you got to see the world in a whole different way.
Yeah, but so does she. So it's in our culture. Like, as you know, we start sending people off on trips alone. I started going worldwide traveling by myself when I was 17. So long to like Fiji and Australia by the time I was 17, right? By myself. And like relatives would meet me there.
All right, when you got to the point where, all right, so your parents basically opened your eyes in regards to like how you're traveling, you're seeing the world, like seeing the world, the way that you are assimilating, the way that you are educating yourself and really absorbing what you're seeing. You started doing it by yourself. What was the difference when you started doing it by yourself?
So the best and the worst thing that my parents ever did was to not monitor my reading material. Okay.
What does that mean?
It means I was reading a lot of things, okay? And probably before I had the mental wherewithal to understand or receive that as a child development in that stage, right? So I was exposed on many levels on that. And they were just fine. They're like, she's quiet, she's reading, that's fine. Let's just leave it at that. but it's probably through reading a lot, I got to actually be more inquisitive about that,
Mhm.
and actually meeting more people and actually understanding different aspects of it. Because while we might have traveled, still led a pretty sheltered life, right? The unit was still there. Like, I'm not traipsing off by myself until at a certain age. So that's probably why. And also the types of people my dad brought home. Like, remember, he's the search and rescue guy, right? So he'd meet random people and he'd be like, hey, meet this person. And that's how it worked.
When did it get to, like, how many years did you travel by yourself, to the point where now you're like seeing the world and now you're like, okay, this is what I want to go to school for? What was that decision? And was it because it was already in the family and you like follow the family footsteps, or did you select something on your own, and why did you do it?
So again, going back to reading what I shouldn't be reading, which also I could now regurgitate facts and situations that I spoke back to my parents. So there's that issue. I'm actually the first lawyer in my family. In Sri Lanka, there's actually a hierarchy where either the teacher is higher, they would call them masters, and then it's a doctor, and doctor, engineer, anything in the sciences at that point. I was none of those. I actually was pre-med though during college, and up until the last year, and then I switched over. But I think I've always
The last year of pre-med, you switched. So you went through, you went through all of that and then you decided,
Yeah, actually, probably I had physics 2 to take before I took the MCATs. So I'd taken all the prereqs at that point to get to that point. Yeah. They didn't push me for it either. They were
well, no, I was gonna say, like, oh, what did your parents think of it? I mean, at that point, what did your parents think? And also, why law?
So I was always interested in it just because of I got taught to play chess when I was really young, and it just made sense in looking at all sides of the argument or the sides of people at that point. And so it clicked for me. I liked the dissection of understanding different types of opinions and then using it in different ways. And it showed me that there's actually no wrong opinion. It's just how well you can frame it. And it allowed me to not, I don't know, I still have to work on this, but like not judge so quickly in that sense, because everybody's got a different viewpoint on it. And I read a lot, and I liked the English language and using it in such a fashion in that sense.
Can you elaborate a little bit about that? There are a lot of people that they hear the word lawyer, they're like ambulance chaser, thinking. I mean, there's always a lot of negative connotations when it comes to a lawyer. I've never heard someone say, "I like the language."
It's the language of the best way to say I'm a contract geek. Let me just say that, okay? So in the sense that the language of it, and it's a beautiful puzzle being put together, where it's like there is what you're trying to protect and what you're trying to actually create and enforce as well. And also you're creating it for a client or business so that it actually helps them grow as well. So it has goals as well. I also use contracts as profit tools in the sense that they preserve your profit, in the sense that they actually define your roles easily, and also they enforce it in that sense too. So when people start looking at it as a profit or a preservation or a proactive tool, then they also probably protract it or extrapolate that feeling to an attorney and say, hey, I'm going to use my attorney as a profit tool as well. Okay. So that's really where I would say the language really comes into play with that. And so I look at things, I'm finding out that this isn't exactly cocktail conversation. Everybody just kind of bores out at this point, because I'm like, ooh, I just found a really good way to like write an indemnification clause, guys. All right, how's your pigs in a blanket?
They're like, ooh, Sankeetha, let me come closer to you.
Yeah. And there's this awesome, like my Wednesdays, there's a YouTube channel called Contract Teardown, right? Which is all for us contract attorneys. And
clearly, because I was gonna say, like, oh, let me like sign up.
No, but it's dope because of the fact that every Wednesday it drops, and I'm sitting here like, ooh. So all the contract attorneys or anyone that's a business attorney or whatnot is like, we dissect a contract live, like Fiverr contract, Shopify contract, Amazon seller contract, and we're like, yeah, there was a loophole in that. Yeah. So it's like you're like hype bred in the thing. Yeah. Don't judge me. It's a good time. You got it.
You know what? I'm not gonna judge you, because you know what? I went to Disney with my mom December 29th, 2019, and I was like literally I was salivating, and my mom's like, turn off the marketing. I'm like, oh no. I'm in the best marketing place in the world. Did you check out what they do in the bathrooms? Did you check out when we walked in? I mean, it was marketing from the second we hit the monorail all the way through. And I was like you, salivating, happy, I couldn't get out of my own way because everywhere there was marketing and it was amazing.
That's how I feel when I get faced with a waiver, right? Like someone gives me a waiver to do that. I'll give you a really funny story because it was so.
You mean when we went rock climbing and I almost took out that contract where you're like, I don't know about rock climbing until I look at the contract. I'm like, dude, it's my birthday. Let's just go rock climbing. And you were like, nope, let me look at it.
Yeah, I was like,
I remember that.
Hold a second. That was even a mild contract. I was like, okay, we can deal with it. I found 2 loopholes, so I'm okay. But one time I went kayaking on the Charles, right?
Uh-huh.
And there was this 14-year-old kid that was taking the waivers. And of course I went with my partner at the time and I was like, hey, and he knows better. So he just gave it to me. He's like, all right, I'll sit down until you tell me it's go. Okay. So I'm here, I'm like reserving rights. Nope. Crossing out stuff. Nope. And the 14-year-old kid was just basically like, whenever you're done, man, like, just give me the thing. And I'm like, oh my God, there's no enforcement. So we give it to him. We go, it's fine. It was actually a really good contract in the sense that I didn't want to sign it. That's how I knew it was a good contract, right? We gave it in, but there was no enforcement. So we strong-armed the 14-year-old into accepting a contract with so much scribbled.
God, I'm so sad because I can't wait to go kayaking on the Charles. I'm like, damn it, now I'm afraid to even sign the contract. You ruined it for me.
No, it's fine. Don't look at it. Just sign it. Yeah. No, don't do that. Read it. Okay. And then
I did that when I went skydiving. I just signed it. I didn't, and it was thick. And I'm like, you know what? If it's my day to die, it's my day to die.
Yeah. So that just made my heart hurt hearing that. Please don't take legal advice from her. Thank you. Okay. So that same night, I went for my first flight lesson.
Uh-huh.
Right? And in that I was so nervous because someone just gave me the reins to something in the sky and I have to go up. So I'm in there and I'm like literally shaking. This is the one time that it didn't happen where we go up, obviously I'm alive, I come back down, we're driving back and I'm coming down from the adrenaline and I'm like, wait, I didn't sign a waiver. How the hell did they let us go up in the sky without a waiver? Let me tell you, the lawyer and me called them and I was like, hey, is there a waiver? Okay. And they're like, no, I think you got part of the package that you got online and that was it. I'm like, we got a Groupon, dude. Like, how is this part of this? I was just like, can you see the disparity? The one thing that you need a waiver for, as opposed to something that in the water, at least if something happens, you can easily be fished out. Easily, you can be rescued because on any end of the Charles. But yeah, that was an interesting day for waivers.
Oh my God, you are so classic when it comes to that, which I do love. I mean, I love that the fact that you've always been so meticulous. Even when I first met you, you were like, why are we sitting here? Why are we talking? I mean, you were very rigid, where okay, I need to know facts. Why am I sitting here? What is happening here? And I'm like, oh, okay, this is going to be fun. I mean, mind you, I do love cracking a good egg. And so it was a really good conversation. And you definitely gave so much of yourself in meeting lunch that you were like, what's happening and why is this person even engaging with me?
To give context, this is after the stalker email she sends to me and she's like, hey, want to get lunch? I've been stalking you. And I'm like, lady, I need to know what exactly is the parameter.
You said yes. So see?
I wanted to see, and we were in a safe, publicly lit place, so I felt safe enough that someone could see me scream. Okay, so all right, fine. That's why I came, Jodi.
Oh my God, I love you. You are now in school. You've now decided to become a lawyer.
No, actually, whenever I want to go to, I actually decided and got my master's. I went and did graduate work in international trade and finance, and then I went.
Wait! You said that so fast. International what?
Trade and finance. I did graduate work in there. And
international creatives.
Trade.
Okay, trade. Okay. All right. I could see that. I could see you doing that 100%.
No, I probably use it actually. I probably use it especially with when we work with our international clients or when international companies come to the US and they want to create subsidiaries, we definitely use that. And also when we have clients that want to do foreign investment in other countries, or they want to establish a whole new company in another country, we talk about that as well too. And how to prevent that. I get a lot of questions on where do we keep the money. And I was like, I can't answer that. That's not, that's not ethical. You're going to have to do your own research on that.
That is always, I mean, I think that I hear that often from a lot of businesses that I'm working with. They're like, if we're based here and we're making money there, I'm like, no, I'm not the person. I'm a marketing person. I make things look pretty. I don't get involved in all the financial parts. It's not my lane.
Yeah, but it's a team effort with their accountant as well. So, I absolutely do not have the monopoly on the information that you would need, right? Because it is a team effort, because business, tax, and legal work together, this holy trinity. So if you make a business decision, you immediately have legal and tax ramifications. And a lot of people don't think like that in triplicate. They think just in their silos. And that's how issues come up, actually. So we start to train them from the beginning and saying, hey, welcome to America. This is how it works. And tax is such a big factor in any decision that you make, because you're not just making a decision right now, it's going to have tax ramifications come a year later when you file those taxes. So you want to make sure you're looking at the long picture as well.
At what point did you, so I'm going to fast forward a little bit, where you are now owning how many businesses do you own right now?
I own 3 right now. I've started 5.
Okay, so wait, you own 3 right now, and
I've started 5.
And you've started 5. You are a serial entrepreneur. And so before I even go to the root of the serial entrepreneur part, I want to talk about the business that you own right now. You own 3 businesses, 2 states, 2 different tax laws, 2 different everythings. March 2020, we go into a pandemic. What was that like for you in March when you started getting the buzz of what was happening? I mean, at the end of February, when the buzz started happening, then it happened. You're still living in Boston at the time, now trying to figure out what the plan is. Walk me through what happened for you.
So at that time, we actually went into cleanup mode. Okay, so we represent, right now, we represent over 200 small businesses. At that time, it was about a 160, 150. And so what we had to do is we went into protocol. What happens, like shutting down, how to get this, how to actually protect your staff at that point, because it was a safety issue. So if they had brick and mortar places, we had to advise them on that. The next thing was funding, PPE. How do we keep them? Next 8 weeks, we went into we were doing like 14 to 16-hour days, just actually filing and helping people with their PPP loans, EIDL loans as well, and actually preventing them from filing bankruptcy. We're just keeping them alive. And honestly, the biggest career high is 67% got funding and no one filed for bankruptcy at that point. So, and that was like, probably, forget every award or any sort of accolade I could have got, that was it. That was a career high for me, because they're my clients, but we also build business relationships with them. So what they're losing at that time, and how we also taught classes on how to pivot digitally as well. So I put on a summit on how to pivot your product into consulting or to use mobile payments and things like that. And it was actually, we used that as a way of education. And then I held a town hall series for about a month after too, in April, to kind of get people to ask questions and so forth. So it was really about, in a weird way, we were kind of on the ground with them because we were a part of them, right? And in the irony of all of this, I was helping them with their BBP loans that I didn't even apply for ours, okay, at that point. And it just because we understood the people that needed it. I will say this, none of them actually filled on their bill with us. There was part of it that we were also doing pro bono as well to make sure that they went, they were still in service. But it was a fact of really seeing the stories, and the best thing is seeing how they pivoted. And it was the most overused word of 2020 is pivoted, but at the same time, it was something that needed to happen to survive. And you got to see the mental and the economic grit of these people as well, of these business owners.
How were you able to take care of yourself as well as your team?
So the team was probably still shell-shocked that we kind of worked in a feud state for a while until we kind of came out of it. But it was great. We were already virtual anyway. We just upped our broadband on Zoom. That's it. That's it. We were already doing this anyway. This is how we started operating in 2 states. We're transaction attorneys anyway, so it's not like we were tied to actual physical dates other than the filing and so forth. And everything we were doing was pretty much digital, or we could, mail it out. And that was really what made us so easily accessible at that time. I will say that, because they're like, oh, we already know how to reach her. So we had to actually teach them, the people that didn't know, how to become digital on that end. How did I take care of myself? I went into isolation. I'm I at the time I was immunocompromised, so I needed to be completely by myself at that point. So yeah, it did suck, and that was one of the major reasons I moved to New York as well from Boston, was because I needed to be closer to family at that time. Yeah, so that's probably the best mental health move I made.
Perfect. What did you add to your life / your business that you would have never, ever considered now, or you could have considered it down the line, but the pandemic allowed you that time to add it to your company or to your life?
So like I said, we were already virtual. What we did decide to do was, there is no limit now. I think what it allowed me to do is to show people that there isn't any limit. I had difficulty. Now I could. Hey, you have all the tools. We could do this. You don't have to go back to actually being in the office, although we do recommend it just for human relationships,
Yep.
But it was also the flexibility in teaching people how to do it. I also started writing a lot more, which I never would have. I didn't have the time to, but I really got to see a lot more, there was more triggers for me to write about, and the things of how people could actually grow their companies as well too. So yeah, I think that would be it. Yeah.
As I mentioned before, you're a serial entrepreneur. That word, just entrepreneurship, scares most people on a good day. The normal people that are out there that have those 9-to-5 jobs, there's a lot of individuals that are either furloughed, laid off, are collecting unemployment, and they don't want to go back to work because they didn't like it or they weren't getting paid for it. The individuals that do have a job, they're getting paid and they hate it and they're searching for something more. What would you say to someone as the best advice for starting something, just getting going, and what are the highs and the lows for you? Because you have, again, started 5, you own 3. Highs and lows of starting your own business. And when did, for the first business, what was your biggest obstacle?
So the first, I'll go backwards in your questions. So the first obstacle when I started my first company was I was waiting for my bar results in the state of Massachusetts, Commonwealth, and those take 5 months to come. And I'm not someone that kind of sits around. So I started a business with another IP attorney, and the day that I got sworn in, we actually went official. And about 1.5 years later, we merged with a larger law firm. Okay, so that's the first company merged. And then the obstacle there was deciding whether to merge so early. Okay. And also the other obstacle is we only focused on startups and small businesses way back in 2009, when it was still just starting to, the startup world was still just getting hot, so to speak. And we didn't do family law, we didn't do criminal law, we didn't do anything else that brought in the business. Let's just say that, okay? So it was very focused, very niche. And for that reason, I stuck to the niche. And that's why, we're here like 13 years later, 12 years. That was the biggest obstacle. The other, what was the other question? You had like 2 others.
In regards of if you are, just in regards to if you are going to give advice to someone that's looking to.
Okay, so the number one thing I would recommend to anyone that's considering entrepreneurship is to identify a profitable idea. Okay, a lot of people spend time on just having a lot of ideas. I hear 19,000 ideas every year. Okay, I read over 100 business plans a year. Most of them are crap. They're boring. They don't even show like how you're going to make money or how, you're actually going to service the customer. So it's one of those things where you want to keep your creative juices going and having new ideas all the time, like feed your creativity, keep a notebook, write that down. And then also it starts with you. And a lot of ideas come from your own irritation, right? Your own inspiration comes from irritation, so to speak, right? In the sense that you find something, there's a bottleneck, or there could be a more fluid or efficient way of doing something. Or it's just something where you're just like, this is dumb. I know I can come up with something better. It's many different ways. Inspiration and creativity comes from everywhere, right? It usually starts when you see something that just isn't flowing right. Notice that, write those down, and then find out how it starts in your brain, but it ends in your customer's reception as well. So how does your customer receive it? If it's just you and your mama using this product, this is not a profitable idea. Okay. This is a very easy test to use. Okay. Really, in the sense with that, your mom probably isn't the best demographic for your idea either, but that's pure loyalty as well. And then here's,
I love that line.
it really is
Okay.
for real, because you're like, who else is buying this? Because people don't test out their ideas because they live in their head and they're like, it's a great idea. I go, well, it's a great idea for you because you made it work for you. But to make a company and to make a profit out of it more than you, a considerable amount of more than you equals a profit margin. And that's how you have to now sell it. So it starts in your brain and your irritation, but you have to find other people that also would benefit from the value of your product or service that is you're solving. And I think that's what it is. So one thing that I would recommend is to consistently know when to identify a profitable idea and to test it. Definitely test it. Actually have a survey, send out people that would be, I know your demographic.
Yep.
Move with them, be them, become them. Okay, be the creepy person stalking people.
Stalking, you know what? Stalking is like, I mean, people put such a negative tone on stalking, just like people put a negative tone on being bougie. I think bougie is a compliment, not a negative.
Yeah, so one is illegal, just so you know. Being bougie is okay, just want to say that, but we don't condone harassment or stalking on this show. I just want to say that.
I didn't say harassing. I didn't harass you. I stalked you. In a professional way, by the way.
Close sister.
Anyone that pops up into this podcast, they're going to listen to different ones. They're like, what's happening here? What are they talking about? Jeez Louise. Are they just stalking? What? Should I be stalking someone? No, yes. We are professionally happy-go-lucky stalking. I saw something amazing in her from the get-go. I literally, no, you know the thing, look, let's just rewind a little bit. I didn't just stalk you first in regards of having lunch with you and getting to know you. I stalked you where I saw you. I thought it was amazing what you were doing. And I asked you to mentor at the business that I don't talk about, that business that I used to work for, worst place I've ever worked for in my life. But I asked you, can you be a mentor to businesses? And you said yes. And everyone that literally talked to you said, God, her advice was so on point. It's amazing. So automatically I researched you. I'm a former reporter. I work for the governor. I know how to do my due diligence, and you had a lot to offer. So my stalking was all about being professional, but I wanted to be in your world.
It's been a great addition. I love Jodi, actually, because and then I reciprocated and then I stalked her. I was like, oh, hi, Jodi. Who are you? Okay, let's hang out. Okay.
This is not about us. This is not about me and you stalking each other. This is about you. All right, wait.
I told this podcast. So it's not about stalking.
Well, all right. So talking to me, look, this is a perfect segue into this question. A lot of the entrepreneurs, a lot of small businesses that I introduced you to that you were mentoring, they all said that you had such value for them. What is the biggest pain point that you hear from small businesses? Because most small businesses, they do all their legal work by themselves. They go to the universities and colleges and get things for free, or they hire a lawyer at a high cost when they're in trouble. So what are the key things that small businesses should be aware of when it comes to the law? Because they just assume automatically, I call for a question, I get charged, the billable hours, which is very, very fearful for a small business. So as a small business, what do they need to know how to engage with you or anyone that's in that's a lawyer that's focusing on small businesses?
So if you're a small business and let me just say this outright, you're going to come over to the dark side anyway, okay? Meaning you're going to need a lawyer and you're going to need an accountant. Actually, I will be outright on this branch and say you need an accountant before you need a lawyer, okay? In the sense that you need to know where your finances are. If you don't know your money, you don't know your company, period. And then anything that comes after is a lawyer that will advise you on how to grow the company and how to protect yourself as well. Okay, so there's layers to this, but they work together in that holy trinity that we talked about.
Wait, I'm gonna stop you for a quick second. Most people will say I have a CPA, so I have accountant, right? Because there's a CPA. I do my taxes once a year. I go to H&R Block or whatever's, or I have my little guy that has in the shop. But then there's an accountant, as in they're keeping you on par. So a lot of small businesses do all their own accounting, and sometimes it's not clear or they don't know the new rules. So can you explain that as well?
So CPA is a certified public accountant, okay? The person that files or prepares your taxes might not be a CPA. And that's that could be an HR Block, a Jackson Hewitt, whatever it is. Okay. And that's a one-time reactive or, necessary filing. What you're going to use your CPA and your accountant for, and your attorney for, is a proactive tool. You're going to use them as profit tools to advise you on the growth of your company and your goals. Okay. So even if you don't have a business plan, what I really think you should have is an executive strategy that lays out the next 24 months of your company. Because really life, like business, is fluid. Everything can, and it allows you to use it as a living business plan where you look at it every quarter and tweak as needed. So basic goals, who do you need for these goals to happen? And then to talk to your accountant and your attorney about these and say, hey, I'm planning to do X, Y, and Z. Can you let me know what I would need, or tell me how, if there's any landmines and so forth, which is great for us to hear, because then, I don't like surprises. I don't even like surprise birthday parties. Okay. So if like you're calling me, you're not going to call me at 3 o'clock in the morning just because no one dies in business law. Yeah. But, and if there's anything wrong with the IRS, you're going to get a letter first. Don't worry. Okay. So there's enough warning. The fact is that we want to be part of your team so that we can advise you and say, hey, that's a little bit illegal. Let's not do that. Let's find a solution around it. And this kind of team, that you have your accountant and your lawyer, they become your de facto advisory board. Yeah. And so you get used to using people, your service providers, as a proactive, forward-thinking team. Okay, instead of a reactive team where you're like, hey, I'm crap, I need help. That's not the best way to grow, because then you're always operating in a deficit. You always want to be ahead of the game.
Well, I tell people all the time, marketing is $1, crisis management is $3. So being smart about it is very important. And a lot of people like to play that whole entire, I'm fine, nothing's ever happened.
Right. No, it's fine. And then we see their contract and we're like, whoa, there's so many landmines. And the only way sometimes, it's funny because you're not going to really see your lawyer. You're going to feel the effects of their work and how well you're protected in your contracts, okay, or the advice that they've given you. And what we'll find is people that Google lawyer it, okay, and they get it, which it's not a bad thing, because it's a placeholder. Any contract is better than no contract. At least you're that the mutual understanding between partners, and it's better than like with some whispered conversation in the back of an alley and say, let's do the high five shake and then we're good, blood sisters. No, that's not
a gentleman's shake.
Yes. How'd that work out for you? So when we see the contract, we could say, oh, it doesn't protect you as well, because those contracts are written to be so broad to cover a great number of different businesses. You need them customized. It could be something cost effective as, hey, go and get one of those Google Lawyer documents, take it to a lawyer and ask for a flat fee for them to review it. That makes it more cost effective rather than the lawyer to, create something from scratch. We do this with our firm. We're like, if you already have a contract, give it to us. Let's see, we can give you a lower, cost effective flat rate. However, they have the right that if we think your current contract is complete crap, we're going to institute our own. Okay, because legally and ethically, we can't just give you something that isn't going to be robust enough to protect you.
When is a company ready for a contract? Because a lot of small businesses don't feel that they need a contract. So when is it time to start adding contracts into your small business? And so I'm always talking about 100 employees or under, but you're dealing with micro businesses as well. When is it needed for what purposes? Give us some examples of what purposes a contract is needed.
A simple trigger. It's actually a question you can ask yourself. When you're creating a debt or an obligation to a person or an entity, that's when you need a contract. And close after the contract that's when you need a lawyer. People are like, when do I use my lawyer? And I go, when you need a contract, because you're literally creating an agreement with someone else. Now, most people, that timing doesn't work out, right? That's when you go to the lawyer and I need this and so forth. That's fine. But make sure that it follows up, or you start that conversation with an attorney really early in your entrepreneurship journey, because it's a relationship. And we're like, obviously, counsel for years, the lifeline of the business. So we've seen many businesses almost approach bankruptcy, come back. I love a good comeback story, and then end up in Time magazine. You know what I mean? So we've seen that it's really kind of cool to see that work out.
Because of 2020, I feel that there's a lot of contracts that were signed, but they had to become obsolete because of something historical. What is the situation? What does someone do if they find themselves in a situation where they sign contracts January 2020 for the year, and then now pretty much like what happened. I mean, like I paid for it, I paid into this contract, or I'm sorry, I paid into this partnership. I'm alive, they're alive, but what do we do now?
So that it all starts with a conversation. And, I actually recommend and encourage our company owners and our business owners to go out and start that conversation first themselves. The minute that we get involved, it's everyone gets on defensive, you've lawyered up, even though I'm like, yo, I'm great. We just want to talk it out. No, they don't believe that. They just like, oh, you've got your lawyer involved. So everyone's defensive. But if you start that conversation with the two people that are actually in the deal together and say, hey, we're in a historical pandemic, it's never happened before. How can we work this out? I'll tell you this, we negotiated a lot of those agreements, especially around March, with commercial leases. That was the number one contract that needed to be resolved in some way, just because nobody could go into that office, nothing that we could do. And a lot of landlords actually worked with that for that reason. And that coincided with how much PPP money that the landlords got as well too, to also cover their float as well too. So it was a symbiotic relationship, so to speak. But another thing is, like, if you paid for something for the whole year, but you're obviously not going to be able to take advantage of it, you can always go back to the person that you've entered in the contract and say, hey, can we work this out, or can I get a refund, because money is absolutely tight right now. It all starts with a conversation. It doesn't have to be a combative situation.
You say it that way, but most people see it as I'm fearful. I'm fearful. I feel that I'm a failure. Small businesses, you hear this all over and over again with small businesses. You never want to show the world that you failed. And even with the pandemic, I know it's I mean, as a marketing person, I'm like, what are you talking about? You're not a failure, and you have not failed. And same thing for you. But a lot of businesses, they work so hard to be where they are right now. And again, historical never happened. I mean, 100 years ago it happened. How do you convince someone out of that where they can't get out of their own way?
So people run the way they run their personal life, right? And they equate themselves with the business. And so they think if the business failed, they failed, exactly what you said. Now, the interesting thing is, the only way that you can kind of explain how it's not that is because the business is one product of that person's creativity. And they're able and capable of creating more. So it almost comes from a scarcity mentality. It's like, this is all I've got. And that's why they're failing, because they think that this is it and I have to hold on, not knowing that they are infinite resources of creativity and can come up with it. If you've done it once, you can do it again. You have to be able to believe that you can and find another irritation factor that you can create a company from. Okay. A lot of great businesses came out of the pandemic. That's the beautiful thing of it.
And well, and I said this since the day one, I'm like, I cannot wait for the next year to 2 years, because the most amazing, I mean, like, again, we didn't have Zoom, we didn't have Lyft or Uber, like in 2009 when the world imploded last time. So I'm excited to see what happens out of this. So this is going to be great. You have 3 businesses. How did you do overall? I mean, you were clearly sounding like you were busy, but overall for the 3 businesses, were they sustainable? Were they good? Did they grow?
So I had 2 at the beginning of the pandemic, and then I had 3 at the now. Okay. So the law firm obviously was the main one. Mind you, they're not 3 disparate businesses. I'm not making shoes and then, creating zippers over here either. No, they're all part of the business law, business accounting realm. So during this time, the law firm obviously is going strong because we still advise businesses, right? This is one of the necessary parts about this. And then the second one was a consulting where we were now teaching people how to exit. Now that had to be put on the back burner because exiting, they were disappointed. So we wanted to keep them, static. And then during the pandemic, I had this idea 5 years ago, and I was waiting a year and a half, like 3.5 years for the tech. The tech came in around that time, around the early part of 2020. I spent a year and a half actually testing new tech and whatnot, found the right one, entered into a licensing agreement, and created Startup Dox, which is what is my baby legal tech company now. So that's the point.
And gaining customers, were they the customers that you had already, and you just like kind of?
So it kind of pivoted a little bit because some people out of the consulting company, we now pivoted into here's how you start a company. All of these are contract templates that also come with attorney review included in the price. Because I got tired of cleaning up the Google lawyer contracts. I was like, let's create a better one. Let's do it. So from the beginning, you have a relationship with the attorney. So it lowers the market barrier as well as the fear barrier as well. Because when I was teaching these classes in the community, the number one thing I hear is, I'm overwhelmed, I'm confused. What if I do it wrong? I don't have a CPA. Can I really run a company? All of these questions that really are based on, no, you just need the resources and the access to good service providers that can guide you. No one told you to run this by yourself. Like absolutely no successful company was run by one, right? So getting yourself used to having that team and also asking for help and getting the foundations in place. So, and I spent 6 months, like that was me in like New York, and I just basically built out the tech with my developers and put them back in, and we just kind of launched. I'm super excited about it.
So proud of you. So proud of you. You're so good. Where do you see the world in, I mean, like, so in regards of the small businesses, contracting, getting to the point where they're more knowledgeable about this, more and more people are on e-commerce. You need to have contracts when you're dealing with the e-commerce part of it. Where do you see us evolving? Because as the world starts opening up, people will start sliding back to well, that's the way I used to do it. Because everything's now opening up again. How do we evolve? You know, how do small businesses get to a point where they're aware that in order for me to grow, I need to educate myself in a new way?
I think the pandemic actually forced a lot of this, okay? And anybody that's regressing back to it is just didn't understand how to adapt. And that's just it, right? And so understanding that regardless of whatever time frame that you're in, contracts saved a lot of people in the pandemic, actually, okay? And it showed you that if you didn't have a contract, this was the ramifications, the stark ramifications of what could happen. So if not for anything, living through the pandemic should have showed you that happened. Going forward, though, it's also taking the best processes and strategies that worked in the pandemic and traveling and keeping it for the post-pandemic nature. What increased efficiency? Zoom did, of course, cutting down on meetings, right? Also, if it could have been an email, don't have a meeting. Absolutely. Send a long email or send a Loom. A Loom is even better. Just send a video and just explain, here's a screenshot, this is what it is. A lot of my life was like given back to me by Looms. I literally, that was brought to my attention last year, and I'm like, this is the best thing in the world. Because too many times, like where like I go, someone's sending something on an email, and it's like I don't know. I mean, are they yelling at me? I'm like I'm so offended. I'm like, you know what? Here's the video. Here you go. Make it easy for all of us. No, this is how my dev team actually worked out things, because I had an international dev team. So they were in Philippines, they were in Australia, and they were in India. So all of them just gave it in Zoom and say, this is the design, this is how it is, and let's go. And it was easy, and I could watch it and be like, and because Loom also has this where you can comment on the specific thing.
Yes.
I easily just had to send it to them. It's like, this is how I feel about it, done, right? The efficiency is great with that. So Loom, Zooms, and actually making sure there was a lot of backlash into letting go people that weren't, that were redundant, that didn't add to the company, right?
Redundant, or they used the pandemic as an excuse, just like in 2009, people used it as an excuse, like well, the economy's bad, I have to let you go, the pandemic. So a lot of people that became like a piece of meat on the cutting board because of this.
Right, they did. And so I actually look at it as a growth point, because those people that were let go, that's a great time for you to now work on your profitable idea. There's nothing like learning entrepreneurship skills and thinking. Let's bring up Shelly. Shelly's single mom, okay, works for the city, okay?
Yep.
And she gets let out, but she's been working on a side hustle for a while, okay? Do you know how much self-esteem and how much like self-reliance that she has, that even if she gets let go, she's like, don't worry, I can still pick up, because I've got I can now work full-time on my side hustle, which is now my full-time hustle at that point. Knowing the right entrepreneurship skills and getting the team ready, those are things that are timeless. This actually is one of the things that I think would contribute to community generational health, right? Where it's mental skill health, like teaching your kids how to figure out a profitable idea, teaching them the difference between a bear market and a bull market, how to invest, how to file your taxes. That's really generational.
Well, these are two things that should be taught. International parents teach it a lot more, or parents that are American, but they've been serial entrepreneurs. Because in the past, having a side hustle if you weren't giving this business 120%, then I'm firing you. So a side hustle was always like, don't tell anybody that I'm doing this, or I'm going to use a ghost name because no one can know that I'm involved in this. Whereas now, for the first time ever, or in a very, very long time, hundreds of years, where the side hustle is being activated, like, wow, what else do you do?
Right.
What else do you do? I mean, like, oh, that's so admirable that you're doing so many other things, which is absolutely fantastic. In regards to the future of businesses, I'm looking at a lot of individuals that are out there that are starting something new. So like there's established businesses, but now there's someone that's starting something new. They're always thinking about, do I LLC? Do I self-core? There's so much information out there on the land of Google that people get confused. So now we've moved from the entrepreneurs to the innovators. Innovators are like, I've gotten fired, I've gotten laid off, I have an idea, I know I can make it better. I have that pain point where a family member got sick during COVID. I saw how they were dealing with the ventilators, and I produced something else. You know, someone else that out there is finding a better, smarter way of making ventilators. But now I'm the inventor, I'm the creator. I have no idea about, and I don't want to own my own business. How do I lead? Like, how do I make it my own? Like, I mean, do I make my business? So there's so many different questions of where people go. So the question overall is, when you create something or when you're starting something, where do they go? Because at the end of the day, everyone's Googling. Then you said it, they get overwhelmed. They get overwhelmed. There's just too much information. They don't know where to go. What's a smart place for someone to start without getting overwhelmed? And yet I want to just get educated.
So there's many different things. SCORE, which is run by the SBA, the Small Business Administration, you can find simple business plan templates, and they have free mentoring there. I actually got my first business plan completely eviscerated by my SCORE mentor. Okay. It was the most humbling but enlightening moment of my life, at my young life at that point. But that's a great way to start, to actually start learning some actual knowledge about it. Two, you start looking for your service providers. This is the point where if you're at this point and you've actually created something and it's actually, you know that it's a profitable idea and completely marketable, then at that point you need to look for your service providers, such as an accountant and an attorney. Where do you find those? Google, our friend Google, because of the fact that where you type it in will be geo-targeted by the nearest attorneys within that area. So then after that, you can see some attorneys, read the reviews by them, just so you know. Attorneys that get awards and so forth, they're given by other attorneys. You want to go look at the reviews by clients to really see if that attorney really will understand you. Google is one where it's completely reviewed by clients. Avo, ABO, is one where you can go to find attorneys, and you can put state as well, and you'll see their reviews as well too. And that's the one where it's real life. It's like an Amazon review. You got to check it out, right? So like, look at your potential attorney as like, what would I buy this if this is 4.7 or above, right? So just ask those questions and then think about, are they knowledgeable in your industry? Okay. And now, while you might be a disruptive innovator, you're still existing in some sort of sector or industry, right?
Yep.
And then you are a curious Venn diagram because you operate in two different industries. Are they able to advise you because they also work with other small businesses or startups or other disruptive thinkers like yourself? Okay. The best part about this job, I'll say this as being a startup attorney, is it's constantly stimulating. Business is usually 5 years, law is usually 5 years behind business innovation. So the law it has to catch up. So what we have to do as attorneys is to find the most stringent, the most relevant law and basically find the loophole or make that company or that product fit. So we're straddling different ways, but we have to actually be legal at this point too. So that's one way you can look for your attorneys, and then interview your attorneys, interview your accountant. This is the person that's going to be assisting you. They've got to pick up what you're putting down. Okay, so if you come up with these ideas and you have to say, have you worked with people before? How have you advised them? If I want to do X, Y, and Z, would this be something that's in your wheelhouse? And then last, you want to ask them if they have the time and if they're taking in new clients as well. So
there's so many times that people talk to an attorney and they feel like they're very intimidated. They don't know what to ask. It's just like when you're talking to a doctor and the doctor says something and you're like, oh, well, I'm afraid to say anything because the doctor knows. So I mean, like that whole entire interviewing part, where if you feel uncomfortable, you're uncomfortable for a reason, and maybe that's not the right attorney for you.
Also, if you're uncomfortable because you're intimidated or overwhelmed, actually send the questions ahead in an email. The way that tone doesn't work on email actually works for you in this aspect because it's very clinical in the questions you ask. So when you actually get on the call, if you do a consult with the attorney, they're actually prepped for this and they know how to assist you or talk to you about it as well. Because we're also interviewing you as well as you're interviewing us, right? To see if it's a fit. You know, if you're a PETA client, PETA means pain in the ass, by the way, okay? And so if you're a PETA client and you're like difficult or you're not able to take direction or you think that you also went to law school as well, we're like, oh, well, how can we be any value add to you?
What do you mean? Like when I go to my doctor, I go to WebMD first. What are you talking about?
Because I got my medical degree from WebMD, of course. So it's also that too, because, you know, I'll say this, to run a business or company effectively, you have to give up your ego. Mm-hmm. There's an inverse correlation. The higher your ego, the less money you make. Yeah.
100%. All right. So I love the fact that we can sit there and talk, and like I'm looking at the time. I'm like, again, we could talk for days. And I mean, mind you, we're having a off the line conversation after, but this had to be the podcast. We had to start from somewhere. This isn't the last conversation on this platform, but clearly I need to do a full catch up call. I'm going to end with our last question. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask, I ask this of everybody. This is always going to be the way that I end. If you had a personal ask and a professional ask of anyone that is listening to you right now, what would be your personal ask and what would be your professional ask?
Personal ask is keep creating. We love your creative, disruptive ideas, okay? Because this literally is the backbone of the American economy, to create your small business based off of your disruptive idea. So please no idea is too stupid or too young or not necessary. It's just the timing of the market. Maybe it's too, premature. So keep thinking, keep the notebook. Professional ask is check out Startup Dox. If you are ready to actually protect yourself and you have that trigger of creating a debt or an obligation or another party or person, check it out. We do offer filings in Massachusetts and New York, as well as contracts for 50% off as well too. And they all come with attorney review.
Who's your best customer?
The best customer is someone that feels that they need to be protected but doesn't know how. Okay, so it starts with the gut. So you say, I should be doing something. Come on down. Okay.
I love it. I just like the entire time I was like talking to you, like my O-ring is way too bright. Wait, what?
Oh, I didn't think it was
like you're like, well, I'm looking at your lighting and I'm like, it's annoying to me how like you look amazing, and I'm like, I look, oh, now I look, whoa, there you go. You're like, I don't see the difference.
No, I was like, do I have enough lights because I'm in a pretty dark room?
No, you look fabulous. You look fabulous. You always do. So Sankeetha, I think of all my friends, whenever she walks in, she looks fabs. Whenever she goes to I remember we were going for a power walk. I go, and you're like, I'm like, what's up with the makeup and the hair was done
from somewhere. I literally was like, because this is the part. She asks to go on these random events in the middle of the day. So I have to break up the day by going on the power walk and then going back to the office. So, and I had clients to see too. So you see, the whole story needs to be said here. Okay, we need subtitles. Okay.
I wear lipstick and eyeliner literally on the podcast, and you can't even see, like, you can see, like, I'm wearing sparkly.
You don't even need it. You're awesome. Like,
I go, well, because during the summer I don't wear makeup anyway, because like the nice, because I'm 50 shades of brown, but now I'm going to be like a nice coating of brown, my nice even.
Yeah.
So I don't wear makeup during summer, but like the little gloss going on. No, this is one of my. Oh God, this is my youngest. So cute. This is like called Nature something. I forgot.
Nature's Candy, like what?
Nature something. I forgot what it's called. It's Nature's Beauty. One of my first interviews, and it was she is 12 years old. She started her business.
Oh, I love that.
And the gloss is, I mean, like it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. No, one of the best things about having this job is I literally wear my client stuff. Okay, so I use their products, their SaaS products.
Same thing. Like, I mean, I like the amount of things that I have, like, and I always say to them, like, I want to purchase it. They're like, we'll send it to you. I'm like, I would like to purchase you.
Same. I also
because the thing is, well, I want to support you, and you giving it away doesn't help. I go, literally, I'm not giving this away. This is like, you worked hard. You got on this and we had a conversation about your business. I go, and I literally made you dig back to your past to get to where you are. So yeah, this is very important for me. And I want to support you by purchasing your thing. I don't purchase everyone's. I go, but I will support you in every single way. And it's fun when it gets delivered, because I want to see the packaging. They take pride in it, not just because you're sending it to Jodi, but they take pride in every single person's package. And so it means a lot to support you by buying your thing.
Yeah, and it's also, like, I say that to my clients too. I was just like, I respect the work that went into it. I don't want to, because people will always like, can I get the friends and family discount? And I'm like, no.
Yeah.
Like, unless I offer it, that's the thing. But it's because it's a level of respect as well too. Just because you're a small business doesn't mean that you're not a business.
Yeah.
It needs profit margins. So it's that level of like, hey, you would buy from a no-name brand that you don't have any like attachment or relationship to. Why wouldn't you spend full price on supporting your friend at the same time?
Absolutely. It's like, and one of my friends, she's one of my writers, and she goes, I'm charging your friends and family. I'm like, I go, friend, if this is not friend, I go, if this isn't your regular price, I go, you're never going to get business, because this price, I'm willing to pay for it. I go, but you can't say this is a friends and family price, because your competitors are literally at the same number.
Yeah.
Kind of funny.
Yeah.
Anyway, I love you. I adore you. I miss you.
We're gonna come down to New York.
I went to New York. A couple of weeks ago. I was in New York for a day. I went to the Met because the Met's empty.
Met isn't empty. I'm like, I have 3 different museum memberships. I'm MoMA. I went to the Whitney, SM, and now Met too. Yeah.
Yesterday, I don't work on Wednesdays anymore. I just I take it's like an educational day where I just find new things for me to discover. Yesterday I went to the I again lived in Massachusetts all my life. I went to the Basketball Hall of Fame.
Oh.
In Springfield, Mass. Amazing. Wow. I mean, did you know that basketball was discovered in Massachusetts, in Springfield?
Yeah, so Canadians say that it was invented over there, but hey.
It's not. There's actually the whole entire history. That was, the guy, it was pretty cool.
Pause, stand by while I look that up, but okay.
All right, well, I'll look it up, but it's like the guy like from Springfield, Mass, and then the women's basketball was discovered at Smith College, Western Mass. Just saying. Yeah. Well, technically, all right, no, wait. The reason why you say it was like done in Canada, and it wasn't. The guy was Canadian.
But so we have rights to it. Come on.
He was Canadian. He went to McGill, and that's the reason why. I go, but he was like, he created it here in Springfield, Massachusetts. He was teaching here. He wanted to find a way to sit there and like, how do I get my students to be motivated?
That's just
no. Canadians have hockey. What? You guys have take the hockey. Give the basketball to us.
Are you kidding me? You have everything else.
What are you talking about? We don't have cricket. Soccer really is not from the United States.
No, it's not. It's about football. But
so see, and soccer is global, not in We have
American football, okay, which is close cousin of rugby.
But you guys have rugby.
Lacrosse is actually Canadian too.
I never owned. We don't even, lacrosse is only in like college or a high school. It's not even like a pro.
Yeah, I know, but that's that. What else?
We have a lacrosse team, right? The Galaxies. Isn't the Galaxies? Is that or is that hockey? That's soccer. The Galaxies.
I'm not sure. I know
this. I don't remember
because even though it was Canadian and it probably is there, but I wasn't into lacrosse like that to know what it was. It's like an American high school thing here when I first moved here.
I don't know. All right, now we're just babbling. We're just babbling. Okay, I gotta go. No, I have to go. Thank you so very much. Love you. And I'm going to text you when we're done with this to actually pick the time, because I really have to actually now go. I have to meet someone.
You gotta go. I'll send you also, I want to send you a community code for you for Startup Dox. So whoever you send over gets 10% off.
Yay!
Is that your code?
Wait, I'm so sorry. Say that again.
You want Jodi-10?
Sure.
Jodi-10.
Jodi-10.
July.
No, minding your business 10. Minding your business. Well, MYB 10. Mind your business. So that way people minding your. All right, I have to go. We have to say, we have to sign off.
Bye.
Bye.